Hello, 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 and welcome to the next episode of the African Tea with me, traveling frugalista, and my girl, T Michelle, the travel sister. Today is going to be a laid back kind of day. I don't even have any tea because I don't have anything to serve hot. We're going to just share information with what it's like living in our respective cities on the continent. So I'll speak on what it's like living here in Johannesburg, and T Michelle will, give you some feedback on what it's like living in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. So let's get into it.
Hello, hello. Hope everybody is well. So, yeah, as Deanna said, we're going to be having a chilled conversation today. We're going to talk about, what it's like living in these respective cities that we're in, and, maybe even give you some tips if you're considering moving to the continent. So, we're going to start with the most important thing, which is visas. How is it that you get here? How is it that you stay here? And what made you come. For me, I was in South Africa for a while, and during COVID I ended up back in the US, and South Africa borders was closed, and so I was like, oh, I need to get to the next place. And so I ended up here in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, which is in West Africa, is right next door to Ghana. It's a French speaking country. It kind of flies under the radar. A lot of people don't, seem to know about it as much. It's not as popular as a Ghana or as a Senegal, but it probably should be. It's one of the most developed countries, here in West Africa, if not, on the continent generally. The quality of life is here is pretty good. Um, and so, if you're someone that's not intimidated by, being in a country that's not English speaking, then, it's some places you might want to consider.
Hmm. I am in Johannesburg, South Africa. I moved here in early 2016. Like, wow, it's coming up on a decade. I can't believe I've been here so long. Um, it's weird. I actually came here. I knew I wanted to move out of the U.S. I was actually looking at the Caribbean, small island called Dominica, which still has my heart. I love the Eastern Caribbean. But I came here on a glitch fair, and I was like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Oddly enough, before moving here, I actually initially was looking at moving here. I was going to that to get my master's in public health so I could come work in the HIV field here in South Africa. But then I was like, that's too far. I don't want to move there. So I say, be careful what you put into the universe, because that stuff will come back to you, even though you think you've, said, no, that's not what I want to do. So when I first came here, I actually did not get a residency visa. I actually came as a original stay, the 90 days. So I wanted to see, what it was like, to make sure this is what I wanted to be, especially in the wintertime. Because contrary to what people think, not all of the African continent is hot as hell. It can be freezing in South Africa in the wintertime. And I don't like cold. I'm a California girl. So I had to come check that out. So I came on the visa, and then I left. I spent some time in Europe. I came back, and then I went back to the U.S. Decided, yeah, this is what I wanted to do, to get my dog and all that kind of stuff. So the thing here, we're going to dive in on visas. Especially lately, I see a lot of discussion about coming to South Africa because, it's seen as probably one of the most developed countries on the continent. I think that's true and not true at the same time. I think you have pockets that are extremely developed, right? And can be very much like at home. I would say culturally and topography wise, it's also very similar to home. Like when I'm here, I feel very much like it's similar to California, you know? And I think that's why a lot of Black Americans are comfortable here. There's a similar dynamic in regards to race, et cetera, that you might see in the U.S. So I will say this, since I see so much discussion about coming here and then doing what they call visa runs, I advise strongly against that if you're trying to stay here permanently, because it's not a good people think. You can't just come and then, oh, I'm gonna leave 90 days and go to Mozambique or go to Lesotho or go. No, that's not happening. Um, and I can't say that South Africa is wrong. when they choose to enforce those laws and tell you that you are technically supposed to go back home. And when I was actually reading the guidelines, it's actually even a limit on how many days you can stay in the country as a tourist. So even with the visa runs, and so I think that's where sometimes there's confusion when people are trying to come here and they think, well, I did my 90 days and they only gave me 7. I'm like, yeah, because there's a limit. And I forget the actual numbers. I should have looked into it so it could be refreshed in my mind. But there's a maximum number you can stay here on a tourist visa. So if you think you're going to pack up and sell all your stuff in the U.S. and come here on tourist, don't do it. As for me, I actually applied for a retired permit. I'm on my, I think I'm on my third retired permit, which I didn't need to renew when I did. In fact, when I renewed this time, they told me, they was like, you're going to lose almost a year. I said, yes, because I find that it is easier to deal with home affairs and applying when you're at the consulate in the U.S. It's faster and it's less expensive because you don't have to do with what is it called, VFS. Did you guys have VFS in Abidjan?
Um, I guess they have a company that's similar or organization, but I'll get into that when I talk about the visas.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're in your respective home country, you're not dealing with that. You're dealing with the consulate actually. So you don't have the VFS fees, which I believe is a global monopoly for visas. So I've had the retired permit. Normally, the max you can get at one time is 48 months or the validity of your passport. So I've usually renewed mine at the 36 to 40 month window, only because that's when I'm in the U.S. and I find it to be faster. So that's to say, to me, it's pretty straightforward in regards to how to get, but there are so many different options in regards to staying here, like legally and like I won't say permanently in terms of permanent residency, but at least in terms of a long-term visa. And I feel like that is the way to go, is look into how you can stay legally long-term in the place where you choose to want to be at on the continent.
Okay, so I mean, I guess to piggyback on what Deanna was just talking about, when I was in South Africa, I used to come in on a tourist visa, but I split my time between the U.S. and South Africa. So I would usually do about 3 months or 90 days in South Africa, and I would go back to the U.S. and be there for 3 months and then come back. And so I never had an actual permanent visa when I was in South Africa because I split my time between the two, and I was able to do that with the tourist visa. Here in Cote d'Ivoire, everyone comes in on a tourist visa. Cote d'Ivoire has e-visa. You apply online. The process is very easy and quick. You basically upload a copy of your passport, your flight, and I believe your yellow card, because you do need to have the yellow fever vaccine for entry here in Cote d'Ivoire. But everyone comes in on a tourism visa. That visa is good for 90 days. Once you're actually here in the country, you can either extend the tourist visa or you can actually apply for a residence card. For U.S. citizens, the tourist visa can be extended for up to 3 years or however long your passport is valid. So if you only have like 2 years left on your passport, then the most that you're going to get is 2 years. If you have 3 years or more left on your passport, then you'll get the full 3 years on the tourism visa. I have a ECOWAS passport in addition to my U.S. passport. And so I'm able to freely come and go on that passport as well. I'm able to, reside in the country unlimited. You basically have to go to the police department and get, what they call a residence card or identity card. It's interesting because the police also handle the visa extensions here too. So if you want to get your tourism visa extended past the 90 days, you go to the police department downtown. You bring your passport, tell them that you're looking for an extension. You basically leave it there, and usually within 24 to 48 hours, they'll contact you and say it's done. Come pick it up. So it's fairly simple, um, and I getting here is pretty easy, like I said, because all you need is the visa to enter the country.
Hmm. Okay. So when it comes to like renting a place, here in South Africa, it's funny. The first place that I rented, because remember I did not have a residency permit, so I actually ended up paying the year up. But to my understanding, though, it's hard to do that today. Um, Basically, even when we're renting places now, I have a residency permit, but they still just do everything in Aziz's name because he's the one with the resident, like permanent residency here. And I've known people who Americans who have tried to rent apartments now with no like long term residency permit, and no one will rent to them. So it has definitely been a crackdown in regards to you know having people like rent property who don't have uh, long term papers. And again, I can't say that's a bad thing. I do believe that countries have the right to, protect their borders and think and monitor who's in the country and whatnot. And so my second place, uh, we got, and that one again, I had by then I had a residency permit, so it's like whatever. I walked in like, you're not getting a year's worth of money out of me. I will also add this, like you always have like hindsight is 2020, and you have regrets. I regret that when I first moved here, I did not buy a car, and that I did not buy at least a townhouse or a house or something like that, because everyone was saying, "Oh, it's so much more affordable to live here than in the U.S. It's not worth the headache." But like hindsight being 2020, I definitely think wish I had bought something, even though I didn't know where I might want to be, what would be safe or whatnot. The reality is, had I bought, I could have always rented out the place that I had bought, even if I found that I didn't like that area anymore. Because baby, renting here is more than a headache. Like when I tell you, like the way these landlords can make your pressure rise with the foolishness that they do. Every time we move to a new place, it's a new lesson that you learn. So I tell people here, you definitely need to do your homework and find the type of place you want. The place, it can be super affordable. It all depends on what you want. You can here live as luxurious or as inexpensive as you like. Like a lot of Americans, especially from the big cities like New York and stuff, they like to live in Maboneng. Is that I've never liked Maboneng, but you can get studios and things in that area. I would say for the equivalent of maybe 300 US a month, something like that. So it's super super affordable, right? That's not my cup of tea. I also don't like apartments because I had a house for so many years. I prefer cottages or townhouses. Um, I wish I could say that being in say like Santon inside or now like the big waterfall area is more expensive. I can't say that's always the case. Like I've literally lived in areas of different socioeconomic status here, and oddly enough, we're in Santon today, and I would say that our rent is no more expensive than what it was when I lived in an area that was, I wouldn't say it was the hood, but it's not as, this is like seen as like the richest square mile of Africa type thing, but the rent has been similar, maybe a difference of with the current exchange rate maybe $80. So I would say over here I tend to prefer two bedrooms, but you can even get one bedrooms in Santon for five 500, 600 a month. It all depends on what you want. But if you want to live in some of the luxurious, like move it on up Jefferson type building, then you can be looking at 1,000 to 1,500. It just depends on what it is you want. I know there are some really large expat communities popping up in the southern part of Johannesburg, like called Glen Vista, and a few other areas, you can actually get some really like large homes for, you're talking about maybe 2,000 US on something like that. So it really all depends on what it is you want. Just know that you go have a headache with these owners. I don't care how much you want to spend. Just today, I have a friend. She was paying the equivalent of, I think, about 2,300 a month for a property with a house and a cottage, right? So you make your deposit, you do everything. Even when you use an agent, you go through and you have like the checklist. Like we've learned, don't just do the checklist. You're gonna do a video when you moving into. Make sure you document everything that's not right. Because sometimes when you go, even with these agencies, you will come here thinking ready to good, like your walk through, and the house will be disgusting. You're like, what is going on? They're like, oh, we didn't know, the owner didn't clean, but you're the agent. That's what you're getting paid for, right? They even charge you for that. They charge you for a credit check, even though you don't have no credit because you're not from here, right? So a credit check, the process, the application, etc., with this particular company. So I'm like, but what do you do? Because you're clearly not doing any type of checking before I got here, or the house wouldn't be this disgusting, right? And when I say disgusting, I mean disgusting. Girl, the house smelled like cigars, cat piss, yes, and trash. So make sure you do your video, not just the checklist. So she stayed in the house, and she's a good tenant. We pay her like we're supposed to, no problems or whatever. Time to move out. Now you got your checklist of everything that was not in order on the house. You got your video of everything not in order in the house. Here they are very really in regards to like the requirements for you to get your deposit back. It has to be given to you in 7 days, right? Unless there's things that need to be repaired. Then the owner has 14 days, and they have to give you an itemized bill of whatever they paid. And the money for your deposit is supposed to be in an interest-bearing account. I ain't never got interest on anything I've gotten back here, right? So, girl, 3 months later, this friend still has not got her deposit. They finally send her Otis talking about, oh, can we get your banking details? We want to send you your deposit. And they send her the itemized thing that's required. And they deducted almost all of it. Her deposit was over $2,000. And so we're like, wait. She's like, wait, what? What is all this? But why did they go through and try to charge her for everything that was not right with the house before she moved in? Like literally on the inspection report when she moved in, all this stuff is documented from the agency, and she's got the videos. But they tried it, so now she has to get an attorney to get her deposit back. So that's these people here. I'm convinced that they just like to try people. So you have to be ready. And then even when you stay in, I kid you not, we moved in, our heater didn't work. We were told it didn't work. They asked us, do you want a heater or would you prefer an air conditioner? I prefer heater, but it's just like air conditioner. I said, fine, whatever. We've been here almost 3 years. You think we got a heater? No. So I tell people, when you're moving here, make sure everything that you want is done before you sign the lease and you hand over any money. Because whatever is not done before you sign that lease and give them money, it will not be done.
Well, that's interesting. Renting places here in Abidjan is probably a little bit different because, number one, you don't need to have a residence card to rent a place. There are a lot of foreigners that are here actually, either whether it be from France or, Lebanese, or Asians, really like all over. And so you don't have to necessarily have a residency here to be able to rent. You basically need to have money. The custom here is you pay 5 months up front when you rent the place. And that basically is 1 month is for the agent's fee. So that month is gone. The 2 months will cover your first 2 months of rent. And then the last 2 will be for your security deposit. So that's pretty customary here with renting places. Abidjan is, really it's almost like two different worlds. And I think that if you've traveled around the continent, you'll see that, the francophone countries are a lot different than the anglophone countries. And because the francophone countries still are using this safer currency, which basically is backed and controlled by France, that the economy is very French heavy still. So it's almost like two separate economies. You have like a local economy, and then you have you know, I would say, I don't know, expat or foreigner economy, which would be very similar to something that you see in France. Um, but in any event, when renting, like I said, you have to pay the 5 months up front. You need to be able to show, proof of income or proof of funds to be able to pay your rent. And that's essentially it. The building that I moved into was a new construction. So I actually am the first person that was in my apartment. So I didn't have to worry about, any issues. I will say that here, in generally, they are a lot more lax about finishing. So whereas in the US, if you move into a place, everything is going to be, cleaned up. It's going to be a T. Here they don't. Basically, when they finish your unit, they leave it. Like the contractors, when they finish the unit, they leave however they leave it. So, you may find, well, you probably will find paint drippings, like on, some of the wood, you may find a lot of dust. Um, it's just very different than what we would be accustomed to in the US. And you basically would be responsible for cleaning up. So like when I moved into my unit, I actually had to have someone come and do like a really deep clean because it was, a lot of construction dust in here. So before I could even move in, I had to have like deeply cleaned because it just was not. The windows were new. They still had the protective tape on the, I don't know, what do you call it? Like the seals, like on the sides of the, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, what do you call it? The window paneling. I don't know what they're called, but yeah, I had to pull off all of that, protective tape were there. So like, that's just something you would never have to do in the US, but that's very common here. So, but the flip side of that is if you move into some place that's not a new construction, then all of that will have been done for you. I think it's probably similar here that if you have something in particular, you see a problem in your unit, you probably want to get them to address it before you move in, because if you don't, it may be a problem. Like I have a friend here who moved into a place and, there were some things that were wrong with the place that they were supposed to fix. And she moved in, with the agreement and promise that they were gonna, work on doing these things. And they really dragged their feet. I think it was over like a month or month and a half later, and they still hadn't done it. And so she finally put her foot down and was like, "I won't be paying any rent until this stuff gets done. Like I've been very patient, and this is it." So of course, after she started withholding the rent, then they start squawking about it, but they finally went on and started doing some of these repairs that they had originally agreed to do in the first place. So yeah, I think that would be the same thing here, is that you definitely want to try to get, if there's anything wrong with the place that you need to have done, particularly if it's something that's serious, have it done before you move in. Don't turn over, any money, or don't turn over the full money, at least until it's prepared. Speaking of, the housing market here in Abidjan is very tight. And so renting here can be a challenge because um, things move very quickly. So, like, literally, you can look at a place And you really need to make a decision within a day or two, because if you wait, like a week, chances are it's going to be gone. Very, very good chances that. And that actually happened to me with one place that I had looked at, and I had kind of decided on it. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to wait. I want to look at a couple more places. And I waited for like a week. And then I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to take that one. But by then it was already gone. So, and I mean, that's pretty common. Just the inventory here is kind of low. There's a lot of construction that's going on. So there's a lot of new inventory that's coming on the market, but it just tends to go very, very fast. So, if you are looking, you want to try to have a day where you're looking at multiple properties in a day, so you can, make a decision very quick and jump on it. Basically, until you put your money down on it, it's free game for anybody. So, that's just kind of like the nature of the beast here, in renting properties in Abidjan. Another difference is that you have to pay to go on visits, and that can get very expensive. So you want to try to make sure that people send you photos, as many photos as you can get, so that you can kind of, some places you can maybe rule out just from the photos. Oh, I don't like this, or something about that doesn't look right,
Mm-hmm.
because they pretty much charge 5,000 safer, which is maybe like about $8 per visit. But if you're going and you're looking at multiple places, then that can add up. You think about it. If you go look at like 5 or 10 places, that's like what, 40 or $80 just to
You're
visit these
right.
places. Yeah, so it can really add up. So once again, that's another benefit, that if you go and visit multiple places with the same person, like on one day, then you can kind of negotiate that fee. So maybe it's like I can pay, 10,000 for all the places that I've seen, or 15,000 for all the places that I've seen on this one day, as opposed to, if you just go like one at a time, and with the same or different person, is going to be 5,000 safer per visit. As for pricing, when I talked about, there being a local economy and, kind of an expat economy, that definitely applies in the housing market. I think generally speaking, you can find affordable housing in Abidjan, but it really depends on where you're at. Like if you want to be like in a more local neighborhood that has not as many amenities, I mean, you can maybe find like a one-bedroom apartment for maybe $250, a two-bedroom, maybe 300. If you want to be in a nicer area that, has more of the, Western style amenities that you're used to, then you're going to pay a little more. So for instance, like for a one-bedroom apartment, you may pay somewhere like around $425, $450 for one bedroom. For a two-bedroom, maybe somewhere around the equivalent of like 675, 700 for a two bedroom unit. Um, but again, those are like for apartment units. They also have, very, very um, expensive, luxury villas or homes. So, it just runs the gamut. I mean, you can find places here that are like $5,000 a month. And this
Mm-hmm.
may be like for a 6 bedroom house that has a swimming pool and things like that. So, I mean, there really is a huge range of property that's available depending on your budget and, the lifestyle that you want to leave. Um, but that's that. Overall, like I said, you can live here fairly affordably, if you're okay with being in an apartment, and that's that. Whether it's a one or a two-bedroom unit, it's pretty easy to find something that's well under $1,000 a month.
Absolutely. Wow, you got me with the having to pay to visit. I'd just be annoyed because here you actually have websites where you can find places and look at photos. But like I said, these people here are tricky. Like I kid you not, the people who live below us recently moved out. Because I told you, I'm gonna talk on that, and that's utilities. The utility situation here where we're living currently is tricky, so we'll be moving again soon too. but I was checking what the listing looks like, and they're using the same pictures from when we moved here, right? And I'm like, these people stay trying to get over on people because it looks absolutely nothing like those pictures. I've seen that you go and you see these pictures and you're like, yeah, this place is going to be nice. And you get there and it's like, is this the same place? So I'd be mad if it was like Abidjan and I got to pay to visit, and then I get there and you didn't play games with me. Girl, I'd be hot as fish grease. But I bought up utilities. And so here, it depends on the kind of place you get. Sometimes you can get rentals with your water will be included. Rare, it'll be electricity, but a lot of places will have what they call a prepaid electricity. I'm becoming more of a fan of prepaid electricity because here is the first time we stayed in a place that did not have prepaid. It's what they call postpaid, and basically the type of unit we're in now is unique. Is that I think this was one large house during the apartheid period, and they divided it into four, kind of like the brownstones you might see in New York. When we moved in, we were told we all had separate meters for electricity, separate meters for water, separate meters for gas. And gas is not always common here. Like electric, like hot water heater, they call them geysers here. Electric stoves, etc., are more the norm here. We just are lucky to have a place that has gas the last few times, which I prefer to cook on gas, right? But what we have since found as we've lived here is that that's not really fully true. The water is not metered separately. The gas is not metered separately, and the electricity is metered partially separately, but it's split off the main house. And then there's this external that's somehow being added to us that we don't know where that came from. That started about a year or so ago. So that's why I said make sure you ask these questions when you move in, and actually try to even ask for documentation if it's for a postpaid place, because these owners are tricky. And the thing is, they will tell the agents anything, and the agents don't necessarily know, right? So if the owner, like I kid you not, the current listing for the unit below us says that we all have separate meters for gas, water, and that I'm sorry, gas and electricity, and that water is billed at for 25% of consumption for the whole property. Who in their right mind would be okay with that if you are a single person in your little two-bedroom and then you have other units that have 4 bedrooms? Well, would you be okay with just dividing the water up based on consumption with all the people here? No, but you don't know these things because they don't tell you. They're not always truthful and forthcoming. That's been by experience here. So now another lesson learned. So when we go to look, I've been going around now, I ask, what are the utilities like? Is it prepaid? Is it postpaid? Can I see the meter? Like, you have to ask these things because they're tricky. And then, we've been having issues with, everyone knows about with the load shedding here, where we have no power for extended periods. This is the part that really cracks up people. I live in Santon, the richest square miles, but we have water shedding over here. Like, when I was gone, I can't tell you, Aziz would go sometimes week with no water. And we live walking distance to a Land Rover dealership. So that has to do with infrastructure. In regards to the load shedding, I always told you that was political. I was like, yes, there's an issue with capacity because of how the system was structured under apartheid versus what, the need is now. But all of this is, basically because of the election coming up. So we've had the election, the powers that be got the government they want. And magically, girl, load shedding has stopped. There's been no load shedding for over 3 months now. Can you believe it? And What was crazy though, when you had the load shedding, because sometimes we would go like 15 hours a day with no electricity, right? Why did the bill never go down? How I don't have electricity down there half the day, but my bill is still the same. And that's the issue with the postpaid system, right? So now we actually have solar. That's another thing. These landlords will promise you. Then we moved in, we were told, oh, they're in the process of installing solar. We've been here almost 3 years. They just installed the solar. Now, everywhere in the world you have solar, what normally happens? Your electricity consumption will go down because you're on solar, right?
Right.
Yeah, not here. not here. No, the electricity consumption has gone up. Girl, I have never, and it's like, wait, because I was gone, but Aziz happened to me the invoice, and I said, wait, what is this? No, 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 something's not right. I was like, this can't be right. And we weren't even home. Like, how do you have a electricity bill that goes up with solar and you're not home? So now, when I'm looking at places, I didn't have to ask about that. Can I ask what the previous tenant's bill was like? Because then you got a real picture of what's going on, not them just telling you, oh, it should be about this. Da, 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 da. Then you get in. It's so bad here, girl. The people that just moved, they moved in a year ago. As soon as they released was up, they're like, we out of here. Because it's abnormal. We don't know exactly what they're doing. And you don't know until you're in sometime. If you don't know to ask these questions. So I said, just ask lots and lots of questions. Our utilities are extremely high right now because I started talking to friends who rent full houses or 2-bedroom like flat, kind of like us, and they'll say that their electricity bill is the equivalent of maybe $50. I convert it with the current exchange rate, right? As to where no, $60, yeah. As to where for ours, girl, our electricity bill has been more like almost $200. Exactly. People, our friends with houses don't even pay that much. It's
Oh,
we don't,
wow.
I was fussing at Aziz when I said, why didn't you say something sooner? Because I don't want to hear my mouth. So he just was paying it. And I'm like, no, you should have said something. Because this is not normal. And he also don't want me having to turn into the fiery Pikachu. Because I think when I first moved here, some of my friends would be so angry and stuff. And I'd be like, y'all gotta learn to relax. Just let stuff go. But now that I've been here for so long, I'd be like, I see why they was the way they were when they live here. Because living here really can start making you ready just to pop off on people because they try to insult your intelligence so much that it's like, you think I'm stupid. Let me show you how stupid I can act because this makes no sense. And the same thing with our water consumption. I think the water used to be my first place, girl. I would say for a 3-month period, I might spend $20 for water, right? Now we're paying about $100. And our friends and houses don't even pay that much. It is the craziest situation that we are currently in. I can't wait. Like I said, I hate moving. I hate looking for places because of the headache. But yeah, we got to. So all I can say is make sure you ask these questions. Oh, and if you buy a house here, girl, funnier thing too, the electricity will be in the previous owner's name, right? So you think you'll be able just to transfer it over. No, but they won't tell you this. No one tells you this. You'll be sitting and waiting like, where's my bill? Where's my bill? So you start calling, trying to figure out, and they're like, well, you have to pay to get the bill out of the other person's name. And you have to pay a deposit. But then when you ask about the deposit, they tell you that it just stays in an account. You never get it back until you close your account. You're like, but so if I stay here for 20 years in my house, I never get the money back. They're like, no, it's your deposit for when you leave. So can I get it back maybe when I die? I mean, I don't know. But yeah, that is how the electricity thing works. And if you buy a property, remember I tell you a lot of people are switched to the prepaid system because there's something weird with the postpaid, right? If you install solar panels, they won't let you get prepaid electricity. That's another little note that just recently finding out. So yeah, girl, the electricity, the utility situation here is very interesting. I would say that with gas, they do have a pumped gas like we would have in the US, like natural gas type thing. But for the most part, I would say probably 90% of the homes that have gas, they actually use like the large propane gas tanks. And they connect those to like the house.
So yeah, so like here in Cote d'Ivoire, it's a little different. Um, all of the utilities are postpaid.
Bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So you will pay a deposit. So, for instance, for like the electricity and for the water, you pay a deposit for those. I forget how much I paid for a deposit, but I mean, I would say probably for the two, it from what I recall, maybe less than $100 for both of them. It gets hot here in Abidjan, particularly during non-rainy season. It gets hot and very humid, and so if you are an American, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using the air conditioner because or otherwise it gets quite stifling inside the units. So the electricity is going to be your biggest utility expense. I'm in a one-bedroom apartment, and I would say that my electric bill usually runs somewhere around hmm, maybe 75 to $85 a month. Um, and I'm not a heavy air conditioner user because I'm not a huge AC fan, but sometimes you just like really have to use it because it's so hot. So I don't use it as much as a lot of people that I know. But even still, like I said, my bill is maybe around 75, $85 a month. The water
Must
is
be.
the water is extremely cheap. I think it's maybe my bill is maybe like barely $5 a month. Um, Gas is not really a thing here, so the houses aren't wired for gas. People use propane tanks for cooking.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise everything is going to operate off of electricity. But like I said, for both water and electricity, when you sign up for your account, you do have to pay a deposit.
Okay. And then I know you like to eat out like your uh poisson braisé, right? And plant here. I'm not a foodie. I prefer to eat at home just because I'm a little on the pickier side. But I think if you are a foodie in regards to like liking to eat out and things like that, I think a lot of Americans like it here because South Africa is the place to do that. Like South African food itself is not good to me, like except for meat. Now, hands down, we must thank the koi, the sand, and whoever else those early people who discovered fire and was grilling meat, because they can grill some meat here in South Africa, whether it's beef, whether it's chicken, and all the different game. I don't eat all of that, but they can grill some meat. I'm gonna give it to. I believe in giving credit where credit is due, and baby, the South Africans can. The Chisenyama is doing it. It's doing its thing. Now everything else, well, the British and the Dutch did a number on their cuisine because, yeah, no, whether it's the cream spinach, like the beetroot salad, nah, they. Mm-mm. Now I do like shakalaka. I will say that, and I like the dumbolo, which is like a steamed bread that the Rosa people make. That's good. And then there's I forget what the traditional name for this because it varies depending on the ethnic group. But they make something called samp and beans, which is like a hominy mixed with beans. Now, I've always thought it was disgusting, and it is disgusting to me from most places. But when you go into like the Sapeti people, like the traditional way that samp and beans is made, it's actually quite good. I had it at this Indigenous Delights place that I went to at this this tea farm, and when I saw it, I was like, "Wait, is this samp?" And it was like, "Oh yeah." It was so light and it was really good. Like the flavors was on it, but I feel like the British somehow have influence because in modern ways they make it, they add like it's this thing called cremora, which is I want to say maybe it's like a powdered milk, like a creamer. I don't know, but it makes for me the samp and beans disgusting. But the traditional way is quite good. Uh, so I think in general, most people are not really eating a lot of South African food outside of the Chisanyama when they come here. But the restaurant quality in regards to food in general, you can find amazing restaurants here if you are a foodie, whether it's Asian, whether it's European, whether it's American, except for Mexican. For the most part, you're gonna find the worst Mexican food in the world here. I can't even sugarcoat how bad the Mexican food can be here. And they think they doing ooh. The first time I ordered nachos and they came and they had cottage cheese, I knew there were problems. There is a new place here. I won't say it's new. In the last few years, called Firecracker, I think it is. And their tacos are decent. I will say that they're not
Mhm.
California, Arizona Mexican tacos, but they all right. They can work. But other than that, they just avoid the Mexican food here. But definitely you can. And oh, how can I forget seafood? You definitely can get really good fresh seafood, like because of Mozambique, and the Mozambican and Greek style of seafood here can be amazing. I don't think I've ever had calamari better than I've had here in South Africa. Like at home we know that they basically always fry. Gonna be some deep fried calamari. Here they more like pan sear it with spice. Girl, the calamari here is also yes. As I think about it, so I would say eating out, and even in general, like being social in terms of like activities and going out, you can be as social or unsocial as you want here. I would say it's not as nice as when I first moved here, though. When I first moved here, what won me over about Johannesburg was that it was like California or New York, but for free 99. Like the arts and culture back then, literally, you could go to gallery openings, you name it, and this stuff would be free. And they would have wine and hors d'oeuvres and like doing it
Mhm.
up. You was like, okay, and all kind of festivals. I mean, they used to have a lot of stuff. And for whatever reason, you don't, I would say since maybe 29, I think it was when the DA took over in the city at least, and they canceled. I remember he said a huge New Year's Eve festival or party sponsored by the city in the CBD. The DEA was like, "No, we're not doing that. We don't have money for that." And I feel like something changed since then. And we haven't had a stable mayor in the city of Johannesburg in all these years. Like the last, I mean, we've had six. We just got another new one. I think he's gonna be out because he's making some poor choices already. But for whatever reason, the support for the local arts and culture that was there when I first moved here is just not there. So you don't see stuff like that. And I do miss it, I must say. Like I love that when I first girl, you could go, it was so much. I mean, you still have some nice things, don't get me wrong, especially with the language institutes here, whether it's the Alliance Francaise, the Gulf Institute, etc. They have some really nice events that are, affordable. I won't say free 99 like they used to be, but definitely affordable. You do hear about a festival or two here or there. The theater scene here is also is pretty good. I mean, sometimes I wish, and this is my wish in general for South Africa, because there's so, when I tell you the talent here, the talent pool in South Africa is like out of this world. And I
Absolutely.
know you're tired of me comparing U.S. culture to the South African Black culture, but there's something with the similarities in regards to our similar histories. I think that influences their arts and culture scenes too, because the talent here is out of this world, whether it's in music, whether it's in whether it's in film, you name it. But they haven't found their voice. Regardless of race, a lot of them really try and mimic, the US Black, right? Whether it's through acting, whether it's music, etc. But they have the talent. When they find I feel like it's coming more now. They're definitely becoming more patriotic. When they find their voice, it is going to be amazing. And I think they will be unstoppable when they have an authentically South Africa, because girl, the talent here, whether it's spoken word, I mean, it's so much to do here. And the theater, like I love going to the theater here, especially when they have their local productions. They do a lot of big global productions here, And so, especially when I first moved to the American accents were so horrible. Like when they did the color purple, when they did all the different ones, you were like, oh, this is horrible. But the last play, what did I see? Gosh, was it Fences? I'm trying to remember the last that I saw that was an American production. Girl, them accents were on it. Actually had to go be like, I gotta give it to you. Like there has been such an improvement, but they were saying they actually bought someone in to work with them on that. So I'm like, if you're going to do the global productions, invest it, do it properly. But I actually wish they would do more of their own because they have the talent, they have the playwrights, they have the singers. South Africa, if you want to have a cosmopolitan experience in regards to living on the continent, Johannesburg is the place to be.
Well, yeah, I love me some Johannesburg. So, I mean, I agree with all of that. The food scene is, superb. The arts and culture scene is, just really great. It's, hands down, as good as or better than anything that you'll find in the U.S. So I agree with you there. Here in Abidjan, the food scene is pretty good too. We have the same problem going on with that Mexican food, and actually, it's even worse because at least you have, one or two
Ain't
places that you can.
no way, girl.
Yeah, way, way. Listen, I mean, it's horrible. There's a new actually place that opened up here. I think last year sometime, and it is better than anything that had ever been here before. So I mean, it's decent, but it's like it's a bit away from my house. It's probably like about a 25-30 minute drive for me. So the food is definitely not good enough for me to go out of my way to go there. I'll put it like that. It's very, very mediocre at best. And the rest is just straight up trash. But otherwise, the food here is good. Like the South Africans, the Ivorians here do a lot of grilled meat and they do it well. Chicken, beef, lamb, um, all of it. So they have something that's called shukuya, which basically like is chopped meat and it's mixed with onions and
Ooh.
hot peppers. And it's really good.
Mm.
They do it with lamb, they do it with chicken, and it's superb. A lot of this is, some of it is street food, and some of it you can also find in restaurants. But this also ties into what I talked about earlier with these two different economies here. And so once again, it really depends on how much money that you want to spend and what kind of vibe that you want to have. Ivorians are, for the most part, very friendly. They like to go out. Like they're not people that sit in the house all the time. Like literally every day of the week, you can go out because that's like how they are. So all around town, they have these. They're like bar slash lounge slash restaurant called Maki's, and you'll see them all around town, any part of town. I literally there's two around the corner from me, so I can walk over there, and people just go there. They just hang out. They drink beers or wine or whatever. They may order some food. But they just chill and hang out. Like they're very, very social people here. So, that's just kind of like what the lifestyle is that a lot of things are centered around, outside activities and hanging out. So whether it's the beach, whether it's hanging out at the Maki's or whatever. Now the food there is at the local spots are going to be relatively cheap. And then they also have, street vendors who are selling. So you can, probably get like half a chicken for the equivalent of maybe like $3.50. You can get like fish, folks selling fish on the street for maybe like $6-7, like grilled fish, a nice size, like whole grilled fish or whatever. If you go to one of the maquis and they do the bigger size fish, you're looking at maybe depending, I'm trying to think, maybe like around 12 to 15 bucks. But I mean, these are like massive, like size fish, enough to feed, three people. Yeah, maybe more like that. Yeah, they're, nice size fish. So like 3 or 4 people can eat off of, this one fish. But yeah, Ivorians do food very well. So if you are into the local foods, you'll eat it. You'll eat good. Um, but there also like are a ton of upscale restaurants here too. And this here, you can go, you can, live if you like about that, popping bottles and eating fancy and IG life. You can do that here too. Now you're gonna pay for it. You're gonna pay similar to what you would pay like in the US or Europe. But it's definitely possible to do all of that. As for like groceries, like I also like I do a mix. Like I do a lot of local food. I do go out, sometime to fancier restaurants, not as much. Um, just because I can eat very well off the local food and I like it better. So and then I also cook a lot myself. So like for instance, if I go to the grocery store, I may spend about, I would say maybe 75 bucks a week on groceries. And admittedly, like I could probably do cheaper than that, but there's just certain things that I like that are probably like similar things from home, as I pay for it. Like you can get a lot of fresh juices that are made here, so I'll get like a couple bottles of detox juice, or I'll get like local. They have, it's called gingembre, which is like a ginger juice. I get that, or bissap, which is like a juice that's made from hibiscus leaves and spices and all of that. So I do a lot of juices. I buy those. So I probably spend a ridiculous amount of money on juices during the week. Um, but overall, like I think it is fairly affordable. There are fruit and vegetable stands all over everywhere. So like there is like never any shortage of fruit. I mean, and this stuff is a lot of it is probably organic, and it's relatively cheap. I can probably get like, I would say maybe like 4 or 5 oranges for the equivalent of maybe 50 cent, 75 cent. Um, fruits and vegetables here are very seasonal. So like around, May, April, May, which is when I love is mango seasons. Like there are literally mangoes everywhere. I mean, like literally you can drive up the block and you just gonna see people selling mangoes everywhere. So, they're super cheap. You can probably get, like say maybe 3 mangoes for maybe about $1.75. Pharaoh.
Yeah,
So
whoever
yeah,
he
I mean, once again, like if you want to go and shop at the grocery stores, obviously you're going to pay more money because they tend to cater, to expats and foreigners. I mean, locals shop there as well, obviously, but I think the prices there at the grocery store will be on par, oftentimes, with what you may pay in the US. If you want to go to the local markets where you can buy, fruit, vegetables, rice, they even sell like live chickens. I personally, I'm not about that life. I'm not about to skin and kill and defeather and all of that to a chicken. So I'll gladly go and pay my overpriced money at the grocery store because I'm just not doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think probably like for a lot of people here, they do. Even like, with the lamb, some people will buy a lamb and then they'll slaughter the lamb, chop it up and divide the meat amongst themselves. So, it's just, there are just a variety of ways that you can live. I think, like I said, I definitely probably live more of the expat lifestyle than what locals do, because there is literally, you will find people here who like have never even been to the grocery store. Like one of
Wow.
my friends, like one of her housekeepers, like she literally had to like take her to the grocery store and like walk with her and like shop, like physically shop with her and show her like, these are the things that I want, like this, that, and other. Because like she like never been to the grocery store, because she just does everything at the local markets or whatever. And I mean, it's possible, and it probably is significantly cheaper. But like I said, I mean, it also comes with having to be able to kill the chicken and defeather it and all of that yourself. So I
You
can't
a
do it.
Southern girl. You got some Southern roots. You should know how to wring a chicken neck and
Girl, I'm a
you know.
city Southern. I never did all of that. My grandparents did, but I didn't. Girl, now my great grandmother, honey, she could wring a chicken's neck and defeather it all that and quick. But she just never passed that skill on to me. So
I'm gonna
no, I can't do it.
I think here for the most part, most if you're in the city, whether you are poor or not, you shopping at the grocery stores. Now you might go to different grocery stores because there's levels here, because it's like the U.S. They're gonna have like their Woolies, they'll have like some of their health food places like a Fresh Earth, and then they'll have like Checkers, like then they have Pick and Pay, and they got boxed. They literally go. It's like a whole level of type of grocery stores. So that's primarily where I shop. Now I do shop around. Like I go to a wholesale fruit and vegetable place because they have a larger selection of produce. I drive around for a seafood place because I eat a lot of seafood, and it's hard to find a large variety of seafood in the regular grocery store here. So, and I would say people are on how affordable South Africa is. What I can say is that yes, it is, but it's not as affordable when I first moved here. The inflation here has really hit South Africans hard, and like I really wonder how the average South African is surviving, because I remember when I first moved here, I'd be able to go shopping. I swear to you, it was just me. I might spend at most $100 or so for groceries for a month. For a month. Now I can spend that in a week. Like that's how much inflation has hit groceries here. So again, I mean, I think also because I eat a lot of seafood, and we do a lot of like produce and stuff. That's why I think a little more expensive, but it's definitely not as affordable as it used to be. So I tell people, don't think you come in. It's more affordable in the U.S. Don't get me wrong, but don't think you're gonna be able to come here and live on $1 a day. Like folks be trying to, act like you can come here and have a luxury on $500. Yeah, no. Now I do think you can live here under $1,000 if you want to like live in a small studio in like Maboneng and stuff like that, and don't necessarily socialize a lot. I think it's doable, but it all depends on how you want to live. And I think that's the takeaway from this in general, is that no matter where you are on the continent, you can live as early or affluently as you choose. The choice really is yours in regards to, because there's literally something for everybody. I would say here is just be mindful of the crime situation, and if you choose to want to live like you a baller, don't necessarily put it out there for everybody to know you living like a baller. Don't be doing videos with your Range Rovers. Don't be doing videos with all your jewelry, like you know, no, because you're setting yourself up to be a victim of crime. And I think people aren't honest about that. Like, yeah, no. So, well,
So
that
yeah,
concludes
I guess just to chime in about that, just to kind of talk about a little bit about Abidjan. I think that is very similar. That you can definitely easily live here for $1,000 a month. And that would include rent, utilities, food, and all of that. But obviously, if you want to live large, and have some huge place, then you definitely are going to pay more. But it's definitely possible to do it on $1,000 a month. Crime wise, it is very dependent upon where you're at. And I think it's very similar to that. I think in South Africa, a lot of the crime tends to be more in the townships, although it does, also happen outside of the townships too. Whereas here, that's not the case. There are certain areas, and I mean, I always say it's kind of like with the hood, you know it when you see it, where, you may have, greater risks, but then there are other places where, you're just not. And I'm not going to say the crime doesn't happen here because it doesn't, but it's just not. I'll put it like this. I feel like I have to be less cautious here in Abidjan than I am in Johannesburg. Like
Oh, definitely.
I literally can walk outside like in my neighborhood at dark, and I don't, I'm not worrying about somebody coming up and putting a gun to my neck, or anything like that. It's just that's just not a norm that happens here. And I mean, also they're usually, I think that this just may be a West African thing because people are on the street until late. Like 9, 10 o'clock, you're still going to see a lot of people outside, at the stands, like I said, they're hanging out in the maquis. And this is like every day of the week. Whereas in South Africa, everything shuts down at like 6 or 7 o'clock, definitely by the time it's dark and people are inside. So it's, the safety thing and the crime thing is just very, very different here. But otherwise,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, otherwise, it's a good place to be. I like it because it is. Like I said, Ivorians are friendly people. They're fairly open and very helpful. It is a French speaking country, like I said, so you do really need to have some basic French speaking skills to live here, or to have some people here that are bilingual, that kind of help you get settled. But I mean, the thing about Ivorians is, like I said, they're very friendly. If they see you struggling, it's funny because also there are, especially the younger folks, they're teaching English in the school now. So like a lot of the younger ones can speak English, and they're like excited to use it because they don't get to talk to a lot of Anglophones. So when they find out that you speak English, like they're going to flip right away and start talking to you in English because they like to be able to practice with somebody. So that happens to me a lot. They're like, "Oh, you're Anglophone." Then they like, "Oh," and if they can't speak it, literally they know a friend or somebody. They're gonna go grab this person. Oh, he speaks English, or either they're gonna call up somebody, talk to her. So they're, like I said, they're very friendly. They're very helpful. So the language barrier, it exists. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't, but I think that people here are a lot more friendly and helpful about it, and more so than I found people to be in Senegal, to be honest. Um, but yeah, so if you haven't been here, come on and visit and check it out. It's a fun place, and I think that most people that come to Abidjan are pretty pleasantly surprised by it. Like I don't know anybody that really came here and was like, "Oh, I didn't like that place." Everybody is like, "Oh, well, I'm really surprised. Like I didn't know much about it, and it turned out to be better than what they thought." So
Hmm.
have it.
Well,
I
I
be
definitely think that's a topic to bring talk about in the future in regards to Bijan. Why is it that it's not on people's radar? Like, in my mind, I'm wondering, is it because they don't have no fake phony year to return to Abidjan, and that's why people not flocking to our motherland trips? Is that why? But that's a topic for another day. That's a topic for another day. But this is interesting to see. So, chime in if you have additional questions about, what life is like here in Johannesburg, or Abidjan, or whatnot, whatnot. Do let us know. Remember to like, subscribe, or share. And like I said, we like to hear from you. So ask us any questions. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The African Tea.
Bye, y'all.